What if the unthinkable happens? A dog, a simple companion, suddenly becomes the only hope for solving a mystery that baffles even the most trained professionals. But there's a catch. The moment the FBI agents arrive on the scene, they freeze, paralyzed, staring in disbelief. They can't move, they can't speak. Something is gripping them, something they cannot explain. Meet Max. On the surface, he seems like any other dog, a loyal companion. But today, Max isn't acting like any other dog. There's an unsettling urgency in his eyes, a frantic energy in his steps. He's pacing back and forth, desperately barking at the air, as if trying to communicate with the unseen. His tail is rigid, his movements sharp and focused. This is no ordinary behavior. Something is terribly wrong, and Max knows it. Max isn't just begging for food or attention. No, Max is trying to warn someone who's about to walk right into danger. But can anyone hear him? Can anyone understand what he's trying to say? And why is he so desperate? The FBI, agents Tom Reynolds and Sarah Clark, were just another pair of agents called in for what seemed like a routine investigation. A quiet night, a quiet neighborhood, no sign of anything unusual, at least that's what they thought. As they pull up to the scene, nothing seems out of the ordinary at first. Just a darkened alleyway, an old warehouse with cracked windows, abandoned and forgotten by time. But as the agents step out of their vehicle, a strange chill runs down their spines. The air feels thick, oppressive. Every footstep they take toward the warehouse is heavier, filled with an unexplainable sense of dread. And then they see him, Max. The dog stands frozen, staring directly at them. His body is tense, his eyes wide and pleading, as if trying to say something that words alone could never capture. The closer they get to him, the more anxious he becomes. What was it that Max led them to? What was hidden in that warehouse that even the most seasoned FBI agents weren't ready for? Max is more than a dog. He's more than just a creature barking at shadows. He's a key, and the answer to a mystery far deeper than they could have imagined. But first, let us show you how this all began. Max, the dog who begged the FBI for help, and led them straight into the unknown. You won't believe the twist that follows. Keep watching. As the agents step into the warehouse, the air feels colder. The door creaks shut behind them with an unsettling sound. The tension in the air is suffocating, as if something unseen is watching them, waiting. Max trots ahead, his paws echoing on the cracked concrete floor, but the agents hesitate. Every step they take feels heavier than the last, as though the very ground beneath them is pushing back. Tom glances at Sarah, his face pale. He can barely hear his own breath over the pounding in his chest. What is this place? Why does it feel like they're walking into a trap? They've faced danger before, but this feels different. There's no logical explanation for the dread that's building inside them. Max suddenly stops and turns to face them. His eyes, wide with fear, lock onto theirs. There's no bark, no growl, just a deep, silent communication. It's as if Max is saying, "Don't go any further. Turn back now." But they can't turn back. They're too close. There's something calling them forward, something they can't ignore. "We need to keep moving," Sarah whispers, though she's not sure who she's trying to convince. Max is right in front of them now, but he's not moving. His gaze is fixed, almost pleading. Tom reaches out, a deep breath filling his lungs as he steps forward, brushing past Max. Every room they enter feels like a mirror of the last, dimly lit, filled with old equipment, dust-covered boxes, and the scent of rot hanging in the air. He runs circles around them, barking incessantly as though he's trying to warn them, or worse, trying to lead them away. "What's wrong with this dog?" Tom mutters, glancing at Sarah. His instincts tell him something's off, but they can't pinpoint it. They're trained for this, right? It's just a dog. But there's something in Max's gaze, something too unsettling for them to ignore. Then, as if on cue, Max bolts ahead, running toward the entrance of the warehouse. The agents hesitate for a split second, exchanging a quick look before following. But with each step, the tension grows. The warehouse looms larger, darker, and the further they go, the more something gnaws at them, as if they're being pulled towards something they shouldn't see, something they might regret seeing. They reach the entrance, and in that moment, their bodies freeze. Not because they want to stop, but because they can't move. Every muscle tenses, their breath catches in their throats. What's happening? Why can't they move? What is holding them in place? They look at each other, their minds racing, but their bodies refuse to obey. The door creaks open, and Max walks calmly inside, as though this is exactly what he's been waiting for. He pauses, turns back, and looks at the agents one last time, his eyes filled with urgency, almost as if telling them, "Come inside, you must know the truth." But why did they freeze? What caused the agents to hesitate, to be unable to step forward? Did they sense something they couldn't explain? Was it fear, or was it something darker, something lurking in the shadows? This was no ordinary mission, and Max was no ordinary dog. The truth of what happened that night would send shockwaves through the FBI, but what they found is something you need to see to believe. Stay with us, because the story you're about to hear will change everything you thought you knew about crime, danger, and the bond between humans and animals. But then they reach the back of the warehouse, a door that seems different from the others. It's newer, its wood smooth and polished, as if it hasn't been touched in years. And yet, Max is standing in front of it, his posture rigid. "What's behind that door?" Sarah asks, her voice low, barely a whisper. The question hangs in the air, unanswered. They both know that something terrible waits on the other side. But what? Max looks back at them, his eyes pleading once again. His body language shifts, becoming more frantic, as if trying to communicate the urgency of what they must do. But they hesitate. Why? Why can't they open it? Why does it feel like this door holds something that could change everything they know? "Are we really ready for this?" Tom mutters under his breath. He knows they have no choice now, but he also knows they're about to uncover something that could shake their world to the core. As Sarah slowly reaches for the door handle, the room seems to grow colder. A sound echoes in the distance, a faint whisper, so soft, so eerie, that for a moment they both freeze. Is it the wind? Or is it something else? The whisper grows louder, almost like a voice calling them by name. And then, nothing. Silence. Complete silence. The door creaks open, and what they see inside, what they uncover, will shatter everything they believed possible. The truth, hidden in the shadows, is far more terrifying than they could have imagined. Max steps inside first, his body tense, his eyes darting nervously. He knows. He's been here before. But for the agents, this is the first time. What they find in that room will change the course of their lives, and the world as they know it. As the door swings open, a wave of cold air rushes out, sending chills down their spines. The room beyond is shrouded in darkness, but something about it feels wrong. It's not just the silence, it's the oppressive weight in the air, as if the walls themselves are holding their breath. Max steps forward first, his tail low, ears flat against his head. He's cautious, every movement calculated, but there's something else in his eyes. Something knowing. The agents follow hesitantly, each step slower than the last, as though they're being drawn deeper into a nightmare they can't escape. Inside the room, the only light comes from a flickering bulb hanging above. It casts eerie shadows across the floor, and what they see in those shadows is like a twisted reflection of reality. Old machinery, large crates, and strange, unfamiliar objects clutter the space. But in the corner, partially obscured by a stack of boxes, is something that makes their blood run cold. Tom's breath catches in his throat. What is that? His voice barely rises above a whisper, but it feels as though the entire room hears it. Sarah's hand instinctively reaches for her gun, but she knows deep down, there's nothing that can prepare them for what they're about to face. Max moves toward the shadow, his body tense, but not with fear. He's moving with purpose now, his steps deliberate. The agents, frozen in place, watch as Max inches closer to the object in the corner. And then, they see it. It's a metal cage, but it's no ordinary cage. Inside is something that shouldn't exist, something that makes the agents question everything they know. A figure, curled up in the corner, motionless, but unmistakably human. Or at least, it looks human. The figure is pale, unnaturally still, and its limbs twisted in unnatural angles. But what strikes the agents most is the face, or what's left of it. A grotesque, disfigured mask of horror, almost as if it had been molded into something unrecognizable. Max stands before the cage, his eyes locked onto the figure. There's no fear in his gaze, only a deep sorrow. It's as if Max understands what the agents are only beginning to grasp, that this is not just a rescue mission. This is something far darker, something that goes beyond the realm of simple crime. Sarah is the first to break the silence. Who or what is this? Her voice is barely a whisper, the words trembling as if afraid they might summon something worse. Tom steps forward, eyes wide with disbelief. He tries to process what's in front of him, but it's impossible. This doesn't make sense. Max suddenly turns, looking at them with a strange intensity. His eyes seem to speak, pleading with them to understand. This isn't just about finding the missing person. It's about uncovering the truth of what happened here, a truth too horrifying to acknowledge. Max barks once, loudly, his voice echoing through the room, and for a split second, everything is silent. Then, without warning, the cage door creaks open on its own, as if it's been waiting for them. But there's no one there to open it. No hands, no mechanism, just the eerie sound of the door moving of its own accord. Tom and Sarah freeze, their hearts pound in their chests as they stare at the cage. The air feels electric now, as if something has shifted, and whatever was lurking in that cage has just woken up. Max, unfazed by the ominous event, steps back, his eyes never leaving the open cage. The agents look at each other, their minds racing. What have they uncovered? What is this place really about? And what happens now that the door has been opened? They know one thing for sure. This is just the beginning of something much larger. Whatever this mystery is, it's far deeper than they could have imagined. As the cage door creaks open, the room is filled with a heavy silence, the kind that presses in on you, suffocating any sense of calm. Tom and Sarah stand frozen, their eyes locked on the empty space within the cage. It's as if the figure, the twisted, contorted shape they saw moments ago, has disappeared into thin air. But where? What could have happened? Max, standing just a few feet away, looks up at the two agents, his eyes filled with a strange, almost knowing intensity. It's as if he's waiting for them to make the next move, as if he's been waiting for them to take that first step. But even Max seems uneasy now. His tail is tucked between his legs, his body stiff, as though sensing something neither he nor the agents can understand. What the hell is going on here? Sarah's voice is shaky, the question hanging in the air like a noose. Tom's mind races, trying to piece together the puzzle. They've faced strange cases before, but this is something entirely different. Whatever they thought they knew about this investigation, it no longer matters. The air grows colder, and with it, the overwhelming sense that they're not alone. The darkness in the corners of the room seems to deepen, the shadows stretching, shifting in unnatural ways. Tom's eyes flicker around the room, looking for any sign of movement, anything to explain the unease that has suddenly taken hold of him. "We need to get out of here," he mutters, but it's not a suggestion. It's a warning. He knows they're too deep into this now, too far down a path they can't turn back from. Something is watching them. Something is waiting for them to make their next move. But Max doesn't seem to share their fear. Max takes another step forward, his eyes still focused on the open cage. It's as though he's been given a command he knows he must obey. The agents hesitate. Tom's hand hovers over his weapon, but even he knows no amount of preparation will help them if something truly dangerous is lurking in the darkness. Then, as if on cue, a sound breaks the silence. A whisper. Soft at first, barely audible, but it grows louder, more distinct. It's a voice, but not one they recognize. Not one they've ever heard before. It's a low murmur, a chant almost, a series of words in a language they cannot comprehend. The sound seems to come from the walls themselves, reverberating through the room like a warning. Max's ears perk up, and he barks once, loudly, sharply, almost as if trying to drown out the voice, but the whisper doesn't stop. It only intensifies. Sarah's hand tightens around her gun, but it's useless against this kind of presence. Whatever is causing this, it's beyond their understanding, beyond their training. "Tom, I don't think we should be here," Sarah says, her voice barely above a whisper. The fear in her eyes is unmistakable. Tom doesn't respond. His mind is too busy trying to process everything. What is that sound? What is happening? And why does it feel as if they've stepped into a world they don't belong in? The room suddenly seems to shift, as if the very space is changing around them. The shadows grow longer, twisting into shapes that seem to move with a mind of their own. The ground beneath them trembles ever so slightly, a vibration that seems to echo in their bones. Max suddenly turns around, his eyes wide, his body rigid. He's alert, but not in the way he was before. He's terrified. But of what? Tom and Sarah exchange a glance, both understanding the same thing at that moment. This isn't just about solving a case. This is about survival. Without another word, they both turn toward the exit, but the door they came through is no longer there. It's as if the room itself has closed them in, trapping them with whatever is lurking in the shadows. They're not just lost in a dark room anymore. They're in something far worse, something they were never meant to find. Max starts to growl, a deep guttural sound that reverberates through the room. His eyes dart from one corner to another, and then, without warning, he leaps toward the shadows, barking furiously. The agents spin around, trying to follow his gaze, but all they see is darkness. Then, a shape moves. A figure, slowly, almost lazily, emerges from the darkness. Its movements are unnatural, like a puppet controlled by invisible strings. But it's not a human shape. It's something else, something that shouldn't exist. The figure steps forward, its face hidden in the shadows, but the agents feel its gaze on them. Max's bark turns into a vicious growl, and the figure hesitates. For a moment, everything is still. Then, with terrifying speed, the figure lunges, and the agents scramble, desperate to escape, but they know there's no escaping this. No way to outrun what they've just uncovered. The room feels like it's closing in on them. The air is thick with an unnatural pressure, and every breath they take feels harder than the last. The figure in the shadows is moving closer, its unnatural, jerky movement sending a chill through the agents' spines. Max, ever the protector, leaps forward, barking fiercely, but the creature doesn't flinch. It continues its slow approach, seemingly unfazed by the dog's warning. Tom and Sarah, hearts pounding in their chests, instinctively back away, but there's nowhere to go. The walls are closing in, and the door they came through is gone, sealed shut as if the room itself is now a trap. Panic rises in their throats, but they know one thing for sure: running isn't an option. Max growls again, this time more urgently, but his eyes betray a flicker of fear. It's not often that Max shows fear. In fact, it's rare. But there's something about this thing in front of them, a presence so dark and so otherworldly that even he senses the danger, and it's closing in fast. "What the hell is that?" Sarah whispers, her voice shaky, barely above a breath. Tom doesn't answer. He can't. His mind is scrambling for a logical explanation, but none comes. This isn't something they've trained for. This isn't just a threat. It's something beyond their understanding. The figure steps forward, revealing more of its form. It's tall, too tall for a human, and its body seems to stretch unnaturally as it moves. Its skin is pale, almost translucent, and its limbs bend at odd angles, contorting in ways that no human body could. But it's the face, or rather, the lack of a face, that sends a shiver down their spines. The creature's face is smooth, featureless, like a blank canvas. Max barks furiously, but his growls are drowned out by the growing hum in the air. The sound is low at first, almost imperceptible, but it gets louder, resonating in their bones, in their very souls. It's the sound of something ancient, something powerful, and it's drawing closer. Tom and Sarah glance at each other, fear and confusion mirrored in their eyes. There's no way out, no way to fight this. But then, Max charges forward without hesitation. He's not afraid. He's not going to let this thing get any closer. He lunges at the figure, but before he can even reach it, the creature raises a hand, and with a motion so swift and silent, Max is thrown back across the room. The impact knocks the wind out of Max, but he quickly recovers, his teeth bared, his body still in defensive posture. But he's no longer charging in with reckless bravery. He's cautious, careful. This thing is too powerful for him to face head-on, and they all know it. The figure steps into the weak light of the flickering bulb above, revealing more of its grotesque form. Its head tilts to the side, and for a moment, Tom and Sarah could swear it's studying them, sizing them up like prey. The atmosphere grows heavier with each passing second. It feels as though the walls themselves are closing in, squeezing the air from their lungs. "What is it waiting for?" Sarah whispers, her hand trembling as it grips her weapon, but she knows. There's no point. Her gun is useless here. It wouldn't stop this thing. Nothing would. Suddenly, the creature lunges forward with terrifying speed, but it doesn't attack. No. Instead, it stops just inches from Tom, its faceless head tilting upward, as if examining him from every angle. A sharp, chilling screech fills the room, the kind of sound that cuts through bone and rattles the soul. Max, sensing the imminent danger, leaps forward again, this time with all the force he has left, but before he can reach the creature, something happens. Something Tom and Sarah can't explain. The room seems to shift. The shadows stretch and pull, warping reality itself. And in that moment, they understand. They've crossed a line they can't uncross. Whatever they've uncovered here, it's far beyond the realm of anything they could have imagined. The creature opens its mouth, a jagged, inhuman grin stretching across its face, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth. But before it can strike, the ground beneath them shakes violently. The entire warehouse seems to tremble, the walls cracking as if the very structure is breaking apart. Max barks once more, but this time it's not a warning. It's a command. He turns and bolts for the exit, the agents following closely behind. But they're not running toward freedom. They're running toward something they can't outrun, something that's already within them. As they race down the hall, the warehouse behind them seems to collapse into the shadows. The walls are gone, the room is gone, and in its place, something far worse lurks, something waiting for them to make one wrong move. The chase isn't over, it's just beginning. As Tom, Sarah, and Max race through the dark corridors of the warehouse, the sound of their footsteps echoes through the silent halls. Each step seems to bring them no closer to escape, as if the warehouse itself is shifting, closing off any hope of getting out. The walls seem to stretch and contract, the shadows moving like sentient creatures, blocking their way. They're being herded into something they can't see, something they don't understand. Max, leading the way, seems to know where he's going. His senses are sharp, his movements precise, but even he can't shake the feeling that something is wrong, something is watching them. The further they go, the more the sense of danger amplifies. It's like a wave of coldness that builds and builds until it threatens to drown them. "We're not going to make it," Sarah mutters, almost to herself, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and disbelief. She tries to push the thought out of her mind, but it lingers. What if they don't escape? What if they've already gone too far? What if there's no way back? Tom looks at her, his face pale, but there's no time for words now. There's no time for hesitation. They can feel the presence of whatever's pursuing them, growing stronger with each step. It's like a living, breathing thing, its pulse quickening as they near the end of the hall. "Keep moving," Tom urges, his voice low but sharp with urgency. Max pauses for a second, ears alert, his tail stiff. It's almost like the dog is sensing something they don't. He growls softly, a low warning sound. Something is coming, something they can't see, and it's close. As they turn a corner, they stop dead in their tracks. Ahead of them, at the end of the hall, the once open door is now sealed shut. It's as if the very walls are conspiring to keep them inside. The door, once their exit, is now an insurmountable barrier. Panic sets in. There's no way out, no escape. Sarah rushes to the door, her hands trembling as she tries to pry it open. "It's locked," she gasps, her breath quickening with panic. She pulls at the handle, her desperation growing, but it's no use. The door is immovable. The darkness behind them seems to close in with each passing second, as if it's waiting, watching, and growing ever more powerful. Tom spins around, looking for another way out, but there's nothing. No windows, no other doors. The hallway is a dead end, and then, in the silence, they hear it. A soft whisper at first, like a breath on the back of their necks. But it's not the wind. It's a voice that sends a chill down their spines. The voice isn't speaking in words, it's speaking in feelings, in emotions. A deep, ancient presence that presses against their minds like a weight. Max's body goes rigid, his hackles rise, and he barks once more, this time louder, more frantic. He knows what's coming, he knows what they've unleashed, and now there's no turning back. The whisper grows louder, louder still, until it becomes a low, guttural hum, a hum that vibrates through their bones, rattling their very souls. It's not just a voice now, it's something else, something powerful, something ancient, and it's coming closer. It's coming for them. Max suddenly spins around, his eyes wide with fear, and for a moment, it looks like he's about to charge back down the hall. But he stops, dead in his tracks. His body tenses, his ears pinned back. He stares into the darkness, into the blackness that seems to stretch forever. There, in the farthest reaches of the hall, something stirs. The darkness shifts, and from within it, something begins to emerge. A figure. At first, it's a mere shadow, barely visible in the dim light. But as it moves closer, it becomes clearer. A shape, tall and dark, gliding through the shadows, as if it were one with the darkness itself. It's not human. It's not even a creature of this world. Tom's heart races. He can feel it now. The weight of whatever is coming. It's like the air itself is pressing down on them, suffocating them. Sarah's breath hitches, her eyes wide with terror. There's nowhere to go. There's nothing they can do. They're trapped, and whatever that thing is, it's getting closer. Max growls again, a deep, primal sound that echoes down the hall, but the figure doesn't stop. It doesn't flinch. It continues moving forward, undeterred, as if it knows there's nowhere to run. And then, in one swift motion, it lunges, its form flickering like a mirage, disappearing and reappearing with inhuman speed. Max charges, but the creature moves faster, its form blurring in and out of existence. The air hums, and then, in an instant, Max is thrown back again, his body slamming into the wall with bone-crushing force. He yelps in pain, but quickly regains his footing, though it's clear that this creature is not something they can fight, not something they can outrun. Tom and Sarah are paralyzed, their minds unable to process the horror unfolding before them. The creature closes in on them, its faceless gaze locked on them, its intentions unclear but undoubtedly deadly. The whispers grow louder, echoing through their heads, until they feel as though they might drown in them. The darkness is closing in, the temperature dropping with each passing second. And then, the creature reaches out, its hand moving toward them, slow and deliberate, as if savoring the moment. But just as it touches the air in front of them, the world seems to shift again. The ground shakes, the walls groan. A blinding light floods the hall, and the creature hesitates for a split second, its form flickering as if it's unsure of what's happening. Max, though battered, stands firm beside them, growling, his body ready to fight. The agents are frozen in place, not knowing if this light is their salvation or just another layer of the nightmare that's already enveloped them. All they can do now is wait and hope that somehow, some way, they can survive the terror that's about to consume them. As the blinding light floods the hallway, the creature recoils, its figure warping in the intensity of the glow. It falters for a moment, as if it's unsure of what's happening, and that small hesitation is all the agents need. But Max, sensing the danger is far from over, positions himself between them and the creature, his body tense, ready to fight. The air is thick with an otherworldly pressure, but it's no longer the silence of impending doom that weighs on them. It's the crackling tension, the uncertainty of what happens next. For a split second, everything freezes. The creature pauses in mid-motion, its faceless head tilting as if calculating its next move. Tom and Sarah, though terrified, are holding their breath. The light continues to burn brightly, but it's not enough to drive the creature away. It's just enough to delay the inevitable. Then, without warning, the ground trembles. The walls groan as if something deep inside the very structure of the building is shifting. Something huge, something ancient. A deep rumble shakes the air, and in that moment it becomes clear. This light is not their salvation. It's a temporary distraction, something that only prolongs the confrontation, and the creature knows it. Max growls louder, the sound reverberating through the walls, but his stance is faltering now, as if even he knows that the odds have turned against them. Tom and Sarah, eyes wide, instinctively back away, but it's too late. The creature is moving again, fast, faster than before, its body flickering in and out of existence, like a shadow that's too quick for the human eye to follow. Tom grips Sarah's arm tightly. We need to make a decision, now. His voice is strained, each word like a desperate plea, but there's no way out. No escape. They're trapped. The light flickers, its brightness flickering like a dying star, and in the fading light, the creature's form reappears, its faceless gaze locking onto them once more. This time, its presence feels different, more immediate, more real, as if it's learned everything it needed from them and is ready to strike. Max lets out a last, desperate bark and with one final surge of energy, charges at the creature once more. But before he can reach it, the creature moves again, too fast, too impossibly fast. And with a sharp, chilling screech, it vanishes into the darkness, leaving nothing but the stillness that follows. The light slowly dims, fading into the shadows. The room is silent once more, the air thick with the remnants of fear. Tom and Sarah stand frozen, not sure whether to breathe a sigh of relief or brace for another attack. Max is panting, but there's a strange calm in his eyes now. Whatever had been hunting them is gone, at least for now. But they know this isn't over, not by a long shot. "What the hell was that?" Sarah mutters, her voice barely above a whisper, but Tom doesn't answer. He's staring at the spot where the creature had been, his mind racing. They've survived this round, but at what cost? And what was the true purpose of this nightmare? Was it just a creature, or something much more dangerous lurking beneath the surface of everything they've uncovered? With their hearts still pounding in their chests, the agents make their way toward the exit. The way out is clear now, but the uncertainty, the fear, still hangs in the air. They don't speak, but they both know that whatever they've just witnessed, whatever they've just survived, it's only the beginning of something far darker. Max, still on alert, walks ahead, his head low but his steps steady. It's as if he knows they've survived for now, but danger is never far away. The agents follow, knowing that no matter how far they run, the shadows will always be close behind them. And so, with the sound of their footsteps echoing through the now empty halls, they make their way out of the nightmare they've narrowly escaped. But deep down, they both know they will never truly escape, because whatever it was that they uncovered in that place, it's out there, waiting. Thank you for sticking with us through this terrifying journey. If you enjoyed this chilling tale, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. Your support means everything to us, and we'll continue bringing you more of these spine-tingling stories. And to all of you brave enough to stick around till the very end, thank you for watching. Stay alert, stay safe, and remember, some mysteries are better left unsolved. Until next time, stay tuned for more.